Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about business model innovation. This is a topic that emerged in our London meetup called the Agile Leads. Why? Because our community members wanted to learn more about it, wanted to know where to start when we talk about business model. They also wanted to understand what's the correlation between business models and innovation. They wanted to simply learn what could be some of the frameworks that can allow them to spot innovations in a business model. Hence, today, we're going to cover preliminarily some frameworks that are going to allow us to start thinking about business model and how they allow us to innovate. Hence, welcome, because we're going to give you a quick or a fast track in business model innovation. Now, let's start with it. Before we do that, who am I? My name is Nastasha Velasco, and I am the founder and CEO of Growth Vikings and the Agile Leads Meetup. I am someone that has been blessed with the authentic pleasure of working with more than 52 teams with talented, extraordinary people across 9 different countries in 5 different industry verticals and with different technologies. Beyond my professional self, it's also my passionate self. And I am passionate about my daughter, about my husband, my family. I'm also passionate about people, communities. I love it. And I'm passionate about entrepreneurship. I was myself the CEO and founder of Brainy Consulting, a public opinion research and market research company in Venezuela. Now, that's a little bit about me. In the case of the Agile Leads, for those of you that for the first time are coming across what is the Agile Leads Meetup, it was basically a solution for an immigrant that was in a new country without communities and that was seeking belonging. That was me in 2019 and 2020. Hence, I decided to create a meetup in which I could talk about topics that were of my interest. And those were agility, innovation, finances, business. Hence, the Agile Meetup was born, thanks to many peers that also share the passion for these topics. And it became a digital peer to share and grow in business, innovation, in agility, okay? It basically became a community platform to upskill transformational leaders from across the world on hands-on agile and innovation best practices for free. We had workshops on it every weekend. And this is how we grew to be more than 1,000 members, all curious and learning and sharing with each other. Now, who we want to be in the future, it's another story and it's on the making. Hopefully we become a partner to create a better you and impact positively the world. We want to be the platform that connects grit, authenticity, and inventiveness with the opportunities to create positive impact. And that's going to look quite interesting, but that's a story for another day. Let's begin then with business model innovation. Why should you even care about business model? Any idea? Well, our community members that came to the workshop had very interesting ideas, right? Some of them pointed out, well, we want to care about business model innovation because it can help us connect better with our customer and explore how we can organize ourselves to bring value to the customer in better ways. Other community members mentioned in the workshop that we should care about business innovation because we live in a competitive market, in a highly unstable world that pushes us to be in our top performance. And if we are not performing well, chances are that we're going to lag behind and maybe not exist tomorrow. These were quite powerful reasons to start thinking about business model. I will leave this question with you as we go through the different frameworks, just ask yourself, why should you care? Let's go. Today, as mentioned at the beginning, we're just going to cover some frameworks. And this is a starting point of a long and interesting discussion around business model frameworks. Today, we're going to cover the business model canvas. We're going to talk about IDEO business blueprint. We're going to talk about the business model navigator or BMN. And we're going to talk about the 4-test framework. Each of these frameworks can allow you to start understanding what is a business model, what are the components, and what do they help me visualize, think, and strategize. Let's begin with the first framework, the BMC, or the business model canvas. Highly focused on feasibility, viability, desirability, and adaptability. It covers how your business is going to disrupt thanks to how it organizes its backstage, its front stage, and what we call its profit formula. Yes, you have a Latin American speaker. Excuse my accent sometimes. The business model canvas is going to allow you to work on what we call your business design and your business testing. Preliminarily, this is what I want you to have in your head. The business model canvas allows you to explore your feasibility, viability, desirability, and adaptability by helping you organize the backstage, front stage of your business and come to understand what's going to be your profit formula. Simple initially, but let's go a little bit in depth. When we talk about business model in terms of a definition, we're saying that a business model actually describes the rationale of how you create, deliver, and capture value. Anytime you're sharing as a leader or as an entrepreneur, how you create, how you deliver, and how you capture value, and what's the rationale behind it, you're talking about your business model. And anytime there's a change in how you create, deliver, or capture value, the chances are that there's an innovation in progress. Maybe with different scale, incremental, architectural, radical, disruptive. But chances are that when you're changing something, an innovation is happening too. Hence, we start seeing the correlation between business model and innovation. Now, what does this model talk about? When we talk about the business model canvas, we say that it allows us, as mentioned before, understand the backstage of the business, which will be, in this case, the key partners, the key activity, the key resources. The front stage of our business, our value proposition, our customer relationships, our channels, our customer segments, and the profit formula for our disruption and viability, which is the cost structure and the revenue streams. In all, the business model allows, by managing our backstage feasibility, by managing our front stage desirability, and by managing what we call our profit formula, our viability. This is a simplified way to approach it. What are the elements that the business model canvas have? Usually, this is the first thing that is shared. It has 9 elements, and those are key partners, key activity, key resources, value proposition, customer relationship, channels, customer segments, cost structure, and revenue stream. Now, let's start talking a little bit about what each of these items in a simplified way means. When we talk about the customer segment, we are talking about those that you create value for. Usually are the people for whom you are solving a very painful problem. Let me actually be more precise. Those are the people for whom you're solving a problem. That problem might be a job that they need to get done, a very painful situation and frustration, a gain that they need or they could benefit from. Ultimately, it's something that they don't have, they need, they wish they had it in their life, and that you are serving through what we call your value proposition, okay? Which is basically, what is that solution? What is that value that you deliver to your customers? Is it accessibility? Is it performance? Is it something new? Is it, as I mentioned, a job that they need to get done and you're delivering for them? Is it reducing risk? Is it reducing cost? There's something that you're providing to that customer segment, and that's what we call your value proposition. Your value proposition is also what differentiates you, what makes you unique, authentic, the solution to that need, to that pain, to that job to be done, to that gain or benefit that those that you want to solve need. Now, two warnings here. And I think anyone who has been an entrepreneur has gone through this, and those that lead organizations have gone through this. When we talk about customer segments, make sure first that you do not confuse your customer with your end users. Customers pay. End users benefit from that solution that you're creating or that value proposition, but not necessarily have to pay. There can be also customers that are users or users that are customers, okay? So no problem with that, but it's worth having in mind that sometimes we have in our business model users that are not customers. So that's the first thing. The second thing, when you talk about your customer segment, identify your customer segment. It's not something as generic as, oh yeah, hospitals. Imagine that you're providing accessibility to a cloud platform that allows you to track the performance of all medical equipments in the UK, okay? In faster, cheaper, and with higher accuracy through an emerging technology like AI. So that's kind of like your value proposition. Now, specifically, actually, the customers would be hospitals that are located in X or Y regions of the UK that have a budget above this, that have this number of equipments. So it is more precise, it's more concise. It's not as generic as like any hospitals. So make sure that you define your customer segment rather than leaving it generic. I think a rule of thumb that I always use here, imagine that you had to share the customer segment with your salespeople. Will they be able to read that customer segment and go to LinkedIn, go to Facebook, go to social media, go to Google and actually find those leads because you were so clear on who your customer segment was that they can actually go target it, call them and do the sales. So this is actually something useful when defining and thinking about your customer segment. Great. So now that we talk about customer segment and value proposition, let's talk about the channels. The channels are the ways in which you reach to your customer segment. Okay. We can think here, for example, of social media. Maybe your customers are usually in LinkedIn because they're professionals that are in one specific area. They're in a business and they actually are always there, reading there, engaging there, having their communities there. Hence, that's one of the best places for you to actually promote, advertise, and share information about your product or solution. Or maybe you have different customer segment and it's across social media. So you use Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram to inform about your product or your service. Maybe actually you are in the business of performing fuels And some of your channels are physical, some of your channels are digital, and this is the way in which you get to your customer. For example, maybe physically, the channels in which you position your product are distributors, or are maybe the tracks in which the races occur, and that's where you put your product. Maybe is digitally your website that allows to shop the different performing fuels, and hence these are the channels through which you engage your customer segment. Channels are extremely important because they facilitate the selling and positioning of the product. Hence, always be aware of what are the channels that your competition uses. What are the ways in which you can change, innovate, and complement so you can get better and faster to your customers, okay? Very associated to this is the customer relationships. And it's simply, how do you attend your customers? Are they able to self-serve themselves when getting the product? Or do they need an account manager to actually handhold them and guide them and attend them? And when thinking of this, also it's relevant to have in mind the costs associated. So how you create that relationship with the customer is exactly what usually is described in this area of customer relationships. Now, that is what we call the front stage of your business, what you want to have control in, and what you want to make sure that you're continuously innovating and exploring how you can make it better. Not less important is the backstage, or what we call the key activities, key resources, and key partners. As a lover of operation and processes, this is an area that I enjoy extremely. When we talk about key activities, are those set of repeated things that add value because they align and they deliver your value proposition. I'll give you an example. In the meetup, the Agile Lead, something that we do is that we facilitate accessibility to top-notch knowledge in agility and innovation through our free workshops, okay? In order to achieve these, one of our key activity is then community workshop facilitation. But then another one is network management and community management, with the difference that it brings. Moreover, another of our key activity is content marketing, okay? Marketing the content that we create and develop, or the creation of this type of videos tutorial, if you want to put it in a less sophisticated or technical way. So those are some of the activities that are associated, kind of like our value proposition and the key customer segments that we attend, which are usually the Scrum Master, Agile coaches, or product owners that are interested on the topics of business, agility, or innovation, for example. Now, some of the key resources that we use in order to deliver our value proposition and attend our customer segment might be, in this case, the insights that we have gathered from the different workshops, the content that we have created across the different workshops. That's an example. When we talk about key resources, usually in a business, we're referring to those things that allow you to, differentiate your business and are fundamental. An example is brand. Your brand can be a key resource. The data that you have created can be a key resource. The intellectual property on a specific technology can be a key resource. A specific capability that your human talent has and no other competitor have it can be a key resource, okay? Your physical locations can be another example of a key resource. So are all those things that actually are very important for us to keep and have and protect and develop and grow, okay? And then finally, when we talk about partners, we're talking about those people and organizations that help us in the delivery of our value proposition, in the engagement of our customer segments, because they share motivations or interests with us. The motivations and interests that they share can differ, but ultimately that exists. This is actually very important. As someone that used to work in sales, many times partners are actually helping us develop further our business. They can bring sometimes up to, or around 20% of some of the revenue that the business generates when they're managed like optimally or properly, at least, right? Because they can refer you, they can maximize or amplify the word of mouth. They can serve themselves sometimes even as a channel for your products or services, or an extension of your customer relationships. So partners are extremely important, okay, and worth always having in mind, especially if you're an entrepreneur that's early stage trying to grow a business, or if you're a leader in an organization trying to think, how else could we here innovate and change? Partners is very interesting option. To conclude, we're going to talk about what we call is the profit formula, as mentioned, and that is thinking about your cost structure and your revenue stream. The cost structure goes basically just focusing and thinking, what are your fixed costs, what are your variable costs, or what are the things that you will need to expense or pay to deliver your key activities, your value proposition, and engage in general with your customer. You will have here, for example, the salaries, the rents, or whatever you actually need to keep delivering to your customer segment, okay? And in the area of the revenue streams, in there we will have, well, what's the way in which you're getting the money? Is it through one-off fee that you're charging? Is it through a subscription model? Is it through licensing? What is it that allows you to get the money, and what's the frequency that it has associated to it? What are the payment terms? What are the dynamics that it has? So all of that goes actually in the revenue stream. It varies a lot. For example, you have nonprofit organizations that when you see their business model canvas, you will see here grants, for example, and some commercial activity that delivers part of the money. But then you might see a software as a service company, right? And they might have a subscription model that brings them every month and every year their money. Or you might have hybrid models in which they have a bit of a subscription, but then they have also one-off fees that they charge because they provide other solutions that they charge as one-off. Other times you have license models, so it varies here. The important thing is that in this area you will have is the how you generate the money, okay? The dynamic that money flow has, okay? And what's the price point of it, okay, to your customer segment or end users in case that you are a commercial organization, okay? Great. So as a synthesis, you can see that the business model canvas can help you organize your backstage and make visible what you do at scale. At least it helps you think it through. It helps you also organize your front stage as you engage with the customer by allowing you to think, what do they want? How do you deliver the value to them? And in which way you will relate with them? And then finally, allows you to think about your profit formula, which it's a bit focused on what's your costs and your revenues, and are they enough to make your business sustainable? All in all, it allows adaptability. I brought you here a very interesting model for me, which is Angel List. At the moment, I'm super passionate about how you can connect early stage entrepreneurs across the globe with VC firms in a very easy way. And I found inspiring the Angel List business model. As you can see, they have very specific customer segments, which are the startups that are looking talent and money. But also they have the syndicate leaders and backers who usually tend to be business angels, for example, and also top talent as a customer segment, right? To each of these customer segments, they offer a different but integrated actually value proposition. For example, for the startups looking for talent and money, they allow them to showcase their team and product and have access to investors and talent. Super important. And as of September, actually, they also created something that is called Angel Leads Stack, which helps also early stage startups to incorporate their business, have a better management of their co-founder relationships and legal setup, but also of their finances. So they have even innovate and improve the value proposition for the startups. So check it out if you have some time. Super interesting. Now, they also offer to the syndicate leaders and backers, who are other of their customer segments, the access to this startup pool and a transparent platform that allows them to track them and their performance, their teams, what they do. And finally, to the top talent that is eager to join these innovators, they provide direct access to those founders and those managers. In general, as you can see, they're allowing the startups to meet the world and connect with the talent and the backers, okay? Of course, each of these segments actually bring revenue streams to Angel List. So in the case of the syndicate leaders and backers, they provide a 5% profit at exit. In the case of the venture capital, they also have that as a revenue stream. In the case of the top talent, it has to pay a fee. And in the case of the startups looking for talent, it's free, unless I mentioned they decide to purchase this new product, which is called Angel Leads Stack, okay? So in that case, they have to pay one-off $500 and they get all the services associated to it. Great. Now, the channels that they use is mainly, they have different channels, by the way, they have grown a lot. I kept here the simple model. So they use their platform. They use also the local presence that they have through all their partners and the people they engage. In terms of their customer relationships, it's full disclosure, two-way credibility, yes, online, easy, accessible, all time. The key activities that allows them to deliver on their value proposition is the incredible development and maintenance of their platform and the extraordinary curation that they do of the startups, the talents, the backers, the VC, the content that they put in their platform, okay? Hence, key resources that differentiate this organization is their extraordinary platform and user base, okay? It's simple. And in terms of the partners, you can see that there's a lot of tech providers that support them, VC firms, super interested in what they're doing and following it. And of course, different angel advisors that are supporting the growth of the organization themselves, okay? And finally, in terms of the cost structure, you can see that there's a lot of costs associated actually to the maintenance of the platform, the research and development, the risk management, and of course, all those other typical costs associated to the staff that they have and the expenses associated to their working spaces, etc. Yeah, so this is just a simple way to put it. And I want to thank also BMI, which is a great organization that constantly is sharing business model cases and learnings. You can check them out, as I mentioned here, in business model innovation, businessmodelgeneration.com. Okay, great. So that was one case. Let's go to the other case, which I found very useful as an early stage founder myself, and it's the IDEO blueprint. Check it out in IDEO University. You can find an extraordinary course that is called Business Model Innovation, by the way, and it works a lot with what we're going to see, just a peek today, which is the ideal blueprint. It is focused to feasibility, viability, and desirability. It has adaptation, also transversal. It works with 3 key areas, which is creating value, capturing value, and delivering value. And it allows you to design and test it. Hence, you can see that in this framework, the business model definition is partly the same. It's basically how you create, capture, and deliver value. Now, maybe the key distinction is the emphasis and the design approach, right? In that reflection, divergence, and convergence, as you are thinking about how to create, how to capture, and how to deliver your value. IDEO pushes you a lot to sketch thinking, which actually makes you see that it's not that difficult actually to create business models if you sit and think and talk to your customer crazy. Okay, like crazy, as they say. So how does the blueprint look like? Great. So it has an area that allows you to identify value through your customers, what's the problem that they have, and who are they, who are those that you're serving, as well as your team and resources. So what are your skill capabilities that you have that will actually allow you to serve the customers and solve the problem, right? So that's the part of identifying the value, understanding what is the problem, who has them, and who, given our capabilities, skills today, and that we expect tomorrow, and our resources, we can serve, attend, and nail down the problem. That's the part of identifying the value. Great. Now, besides that, it has an area that focuses on how you create value. And that's basically for you to think, well, what's my offer and what's the value proposition around it? What is that specific product or service that I make, that I will deliver, and what differentiates me from those that also do the same, right? What is so unique about what I do that others don't do, all right? So for example, in the case of the Agile Leads, our customers, those that we are serving, as I mentioned before, are usually highly curious and super dynamic and high performing Scrum Masters, product owner, Agile coaches, or what we call project leaders. What we usually offer them is community upskilling sessions, right? What differentiates our value proposition, besides being free, is actually that intimate community interaction that we bring, but also the crazy creativity, because we might do crazy things to just have fun, right? And that differentiates sometimes from just the master class, right? And the content that we bring is actually not only from the Agile traditional literature, but we use a lot of content that comes from economics, that comes from business, that comes from psychology, that comes from organizational development, that comes from community, that comes from politics, that are practices that are there as you do actually your everyday agiles. Of course, we see the Kanban, we see the Scrum, we see the different frameworks in agility, but we give it another twist, another view, thanks to our multidisciplinary background. So that multidisciplinarity is something that we bring that is different. And of course, the design also of the facilitations, right? How we design it, how we create that sense of gathering. So that's something that we want to bring, that it's different, right? So that's what you call creating your value. Now, besides that, you have the area in the blueprint that focus on how you capture value. And this usually means, writing down, what is your revenue model? How is it that you will make the money? Is it through subscription? Is it through a one-off? Is it through licensing? How you're going to make that money? Then is the price point. How much are you going to charge for it, right? And to each of your different customers? Are you not gonna segment it to one segment? You're gonna charge something, to other segment another thing. So that's described in this area. And finally, your cost. How much does it cost to create and deliver what you are offering? Okay. The final area of the blueprint is what we actually call delivering value. And that is focused on the channels of how will you get your offer to the customers, and how, through which relationships or share interests with organizations or people, you're gonna position it out in the market, okay, which usually are your partners. So as you see, the blueprint covers how you identify value, how you create value, how you capture value, and how you deliver value, okay? Something that every entrepreneur and leader thinks in an organization. The great thing about IDEO is that it helps you as an entrepreneur or as a leader thinking about business model to really write and sketch down your ideas, because their process allows you to identify what is insightful, unique, that really helps you target your customer segment, okay? To the point that it allows you to think, well, why your customers will choose your business, okay? And it allows you to iterate on that thought. This model also allows you to sketch, as I mentioned, what your company is, what is the value proposition that it delivers, what is the call for action that it has, what is the one sentence that describe it, in a way that it can allow you to sketch it and test it with your customer. And by the customer liking it, disliking it, giving you ideas or questions, it allows you to iterate that proposition and improve it, and then feed it back to the blueprint so you can be better on it. It also has a lot of kind of like guidance on how to create your revenue model, your price ranges, and how you can actually explore the best moments in the customer journey to get more revenue from, okay? And it allows you to organize also what are your top costs when delivering your value proposition. To conclude, it allows you to sketch, okay, the different ways in which you can get revenue streams. For example, the revenue model, how you will get paid, the frequency, and by which customer and stakeholders. And through the sketching of what's typical, what's a stretch, what is a stretch idea, and what is a wild idea, it also teaches you that it's okay just to try it out. Don't worry. It's not like this is your final revenue model and you have to do so much work before you really nail the perfect one. It teaches you like this is a constant iteration, okay? And it's just better just to get started, write it down and see it, okay? And finally, it also allows you to think about your channels. How is it that you might meet more your customer needs? What are the contact places, the contact ways, times that you can meet them? How might you be more direct or indirect with them? How could you bundle your services or partner for them? And what you might need to consider in the future in order to deliver in a more innovative way to your customers. Great questions that really make you think about it. And the best thing about the IDEO is that it forces you to sketch it with this design approach, which actually allows you to see visually, oh yeah, so these are my channels, this is what I will buy, this is what I would use, this is what I would position it as. Extremely useful for a team exercise, allowing you at the end just to know who you are, what you're going to deliver as a vision, for who, why they will choose you, okay? How you will get paid, with what frequency, by which specific customers, what will be the top cost that your value proposition will have to face, and how people will be able to buy your offer, meaning through which channels, when, and with which partners or with which bundles, okay? So it's an extremely organized approach to think about the business model. So I highly recommend it. In IDEO University, you will find a course only focused on this. Now, another great approach is what we call the business model navigator. Yes, you might not see it here, or you might see it here. Business model navigator. Yes, you have 55 models and different patterns to think about it. I really like this model too, especially, you know, if you think and you use the different frameworks, it allows you to see in a different way your business. It allows also feasibility, viability, and desirability as kind of like key focus. It brings what we call the customer perspective, the inside perspective, the value perspective, the outside perspective, or what they call the NAB method: need, approach, benefit, and competition. Okay. Now, for the authors, in this case, Oliver Gassman, Caroline, and Michaela, when we talk about business model, we're talking about who your customers are, what you're selling, how you produce your offering, and why your business is profitable. We are usually talking about business model as a way to actually innovate as an organization that brings even higher value than innovating process or products, okay, according to the authors. Now, how does the framework look like? Well, it looks like this. Usually you are just answering, what is it that you're offering to your customer? Who are your target customer? How is it that you create your value proposition, and why do they pay you? So every time you're talking about what you offer to who and how you create that and why you get your money, that's what we talk about when we talk about business model. And there's different answers to these questions. And each of these answers actually generate patterns, which are the 55 models that they identify. So I will highly recommend go and check in each of the pattern. But this allows us to actually really destroy myth about business model innovation, that sometimes it requires to think really big, that it's about incorporating technology, that only some lucky business achieve, or lucky people business model innovation, that you got to be Einstein or very smart to do business model innovation, that there is a lot of research and development that must be done, etc. Right? What they wanted actually to show is that there's some steps that you can go through and think that can allow you to actually develop business model, different business models, and innovate. Okay. So they recommend an initiation stage, which you are designing a business model. You're a business model designer, very fancy. And in that stage, you're actually thinking, you know, like, what do I want to offer? How do I want to offer? To who specifically? And why will they pay me? Especially given the players that are in the markets and the drivers of change, you know, whatever is changing right now in the market that is pushing the customer to look to try to solve that specific problem that you think you will be able to deliver, okay, and that other players in the market are trying to deliver to, right? Now, after this process occurs, comes what is considered the ideation. And in this phase, what you do is like you adapt your business model patterns. So you say, well, this is my current business model, which can be subscription. Let's just give an example. Well, by exploring, well, a similar principle, what are other patterns of business model that have similar principles? This 5, all right. Or what are some other business models that have even a different principle that confronts this, or this 6? So by kind of like analyzing this way, it allows you just to think like, what is it that I could change in the what, in the how, in the why, and in the who, okay? And what it allows you is just to go through an organized way those different models and check what might be more ideal to satisfy your customer needs, and to actually overcome today's players and change drivers and your own business structure to actually position yourself in the market better, right? Now, once that's done, you select the idea of basically what's going to be that final business model that works the best, which is the new business model. And you just check if it has actually internal consistency, if it aligns with your capabilities, with where you are and where your vision is. Okay, all this part that we called before, think of your balanced scorecard, right? Like your human capabilities, your processes, the way you go to market, right? Your financials. So is it consistent internally? And then is it consistent externally with where you want to be and where you want to, your product and your company to position themselves, right? So that actually is what we call the integration phase, which really comes to detail the business model. As you see throughout the whole process, you're doing testing, adaptation, okay? That once refined and iterated, of course, then it allows you to introduce into the market. Extremely fascinating model. Then you'll see in the case of the book that you have kind of like different cases. I just wanted here to put some example. The final thing that I want to mention is the approach is the method of like need, approach, benefits, and competition, which I think is an incredible framework just to think through as you start imagining or questioning or trying to redesign your business model. The need part is just basically always asking yourself, what does the opportunity look like? What is the problem here that we want to solve? And that brings with it an opportunity, right? From the customer perspective, what is that need, that job to be done, that pain, that frustration? All right. Then what's going to be the approach? So how does our value proposition look like? That's that inside perspective. What do we want to differentiate ourselves from the players and capitalize of these driving changes? And the benefits, what is it that our customer will benefit in this case? What's the amount of that benefit? And what of what we want to create, we actually want to capture quantitatively and qualitatively? How can we share that with the customer, right? So that value perspective. And then finally, the competition, who is your competition? Who are the main competitors? What alternatives exist to us? So we can actually seek to be the leaders in the market, or whatever your strategy is though. In sentences, you can see here, you have a draft or that need, that approach, that NAP that we recommend. Okay, need, approach, benefit, and competitors. That allows you to think of that elevator pitch and spot what are the holes that it might have, redesign it, and then kind of like incorporate. Okay. So very interesting thought there to have. Finally, we're going to talk about what it's called like the 4 tasks, kind of like business model approach. This one is not rigorous. It's something that sometimes you can use like as educated fast guess. Okay, it's like when you are doing kind of like the napkin sketch, right? So this is the napkin sketch, and I just wanted to bring it because I think it's a great starting point, especially when you're maybe discussing with someone, you came across an idea and you just want to kick off the conversation before you do maybe your business model canvas or do IDO process, or you even do your business model navigator proper sessions. This is kind of like that napkin approach. It is also focused on feasibility, viability, and desirability, but it basically pushes you to think what's going to be the value that you can bring with your offer, how are you going to execute it, how are you going to scale it, and how are you going to defend it, okay? So it's more of an iterative growth designed approach. What is it about? So it's basically focused on as I mentioned, what is the value your business will generate and for who and how it would be executed, what would differentiate you and what will allow you to scale it, okay? And if you give me just actually a second, because we are had these in in the session more than a slide. It was kind of like an exercise. I will be able to very briefly kind of like show you what are those different questions that you can play around, check out, and enjoy it as you go through. By the way, I will leave the link to the mural so everyone have a chance to play with it. So as you see, what you would have here is kind of like that offered idea. Okay, what is it that I want to offer to those that I believe are my customers? So the first area is the value, right? And it's basically asking yourself, okay, is there a problem here? If there is a problem, do customers really need for this problem to be solved? Is it severe? Is it frequent? Is it something that's really painful and deserves a solution? Yes or no? So if they want it, who specifically are those customers? Okay, is that, for example, recent graduates that are starting their new job, and it's important for them to really have sharp communication skills as they start engaging in their professional careers with executive and so on. Let's give an example that your offer is going to be intercultural communications for recent international graduates that are looking their first job post in countries that have a total different culture than them. Okay, so kind of like try to narrow down who those customers are, right? Because it's easier to start thinking, oh, okay, so okay, but even as I put it in this way, it is too broad. It is too broad. So maybe it's better to talk, well, we are when talking about providing fun, engaging, and effective intercultural communication development, we are going to target actually recent international graduates in London, okay, that are high performing and are seeking to kind of like generate a great impression in their new jobs, especially with their line managers and executives. This is just an example, okay? So what I mean to say here is like, make sure that you define properly who the customer are in a way that you can actually go, and find them. Okay, I'll give an example that for a sustainability app that we had, actually our beachhead market, or the market that we wanted to start with was actually London. And for it, global category marketing managers were the segment that we were targeting. And it was extremely easy to actually go to LinkedIn and write down, London, put the vertical that we wanted to focus, which was in this case food and drinks, and then put global category managers and actually see who they were, the amount, okay, how they were distributed. That made so much easier for us to reach out, talk, and validate our product idea. So this is what I mean when I say try to make sure that you're more specific with who are those customers that want it. Okay. Now, the other question that you have there is, how will your customers pay for it? And this is the revenue model. Okay. How much, what's the range that you think that they will pay? And do you need partners? If you do, who are those partners? The other key question, will you be able to produce it and take it to market? Yes, no, how? How specifically will you do that? Sketch it out. How can you acquire the customers? Sketch out the different ways that you will acquire them. With which key capabilities are you going to be able to execute? What are those things, those resources, those competencies that make you so different that we allow you to actually execute on this? And what are those that you will need maybe, okay? The other part is focused on what's actually the total addressable market. So, okay, if we say that in the case of the marketing category managers, right? If we say that there's around 5,000 in London, and each of them actually have, for the specific product that we want to position, they have a budget of X, or the contract value that they usually are willing to pay is Y. Then you multiply that number of potential customers for times that contract value that you learn that they could be willing to pay, and that gives you a preliminary total available market. That doesn't mean that is the market that you will be able to serve, but it tells you a little bit of what it could be, especially for that beachhead market if you're starting, which actually you can change it later for not the beachhead, but for all of the market that you want to tackle, okay? But just ask yourself, what is the total addressable market? Just ask yourself that. I know that there's many entrepreneurs that actually even question this. I think, one of the founders actually for Evernote, he always said, like, it's very silly to think about total addressable market, but this might be a traditional view that I want to put out there. Just think about it. Yeah. And then how would you operate as you want to grow? How would you not only acquire the customers, but make it affordable? And what are some preliminary revenue cost items that you got to think about? The final question for this napkin business model sketch is like, how would you create your unfair advantage, and how would you kind of like protect it? Okay. So how would you make sure, that you could make yourself one of the market leaders, or just be the best in something that others are not? Differentiate yourself, right? So as you see, the final items is basically, what kind of like would be the blockers and what's in it for anyone that it's associated to this model. Okay. So that's a little bit about what we call like this business model napkin approach. Yes. And that we wanted to kind of like bring to you. Is a thought. It's just a thought proposal. Okay. So yeah, thank you for being today here with us. Hopefully this initial approach to business model was useful for you. We made an emphasis a lot in the high level explanation of the business model canvas, of the ideal blueprint, and of the business model navigator. They're more rigorous, super useful. And then we wanted you to have fun with this proposal of the 4 tasks that you can do in your napkin when you start thinking and talking about the business model. How is it I'm going to deliver value, execute, scale, and then create my defensible solution. Okay. Now, if you have any questions or considerations, please leave it down in the comments. We'll make sure to check it out and solve them. Also, feel free to just click on the link to the mural and you can have the templates, download them. And if you want to have hands-on training with community and peers, then come to the Agile Leads Meetup. In there, you will have more engaging session. Hopefully, this was useful for you. Thank you for being here today, and goodbye.